Welcome to Affirmation Conversations. In this episode, we're diving deep into a topic that affects so many of us: self confidence and overcoming the challenges that hinder personal and professional growth. Whether you're struggling with self doubt or battling imposter syndrome, we've got you covered. Today, we'll explore powerful affirmations that can serve as antidotes to self doubt, empowering you to banish those feelings of inadequacy. But we won't stop there. We'll also discuss how childhood experiences impact self confidence and tackle the hurdles you might face in your career journey. Join us for invaluable insights and strategies to conquer self doubt, foster resilience, and pave the way for a more confident, empowered you. Stay tuned and get ready to transform your mindset and boost your self esteem. With me today are three amazing individuals. I'm going to start with Ricky Wyrick. A 20-year U.S. Army veteran, Ricky Wyrick is a 500-hour certified international multi-style yoga teacher. As a people-focused community leader, Rick is passionate about coaching, mentoring, and inspiring others to become the truest expression of themselves. With a commitment to helping individuals find true happiness from within, Rick encourages living a purpose-driven life to its fullest potential. His extensive military experience combined with his expertise in yoga makes Rick a unique and inspiring figure, dedicated to fostering personal growth and well-being in his community. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you.
You're like, oh, I didn't even know. See, that's that self-confidence. That's all you. Nothing I said was a lie. Angela Barthelemy is a dedicated warrant officer in the United States Army Reserve. She specialized in human resources for over 2 decades. Her extensive experience in the military is complemented by her role as lead medical support assistant for Veterans Affairs, where she leverages her expertise to support fellow veterans. Angela holds a bachelor's degree in human resource management, underscoring her commitment to professional excellence. When not on active duty, Angela is deeply involved in her community, finding joy in helping others and making meaningful contributions. Her passion for service extends beyond her professional life into her personal interests. She enjoys exploring the outdoors through hiking, indulges her love of travel, and cherishes quality time with her family. Additionally, Angela is always eager to embrace new hobbies, continually seeking to enrich her life with new experiences and skills. Her career in both the Army Reserve and Veterans Affairs highlights her unwavering dedication to service, making her a valuable asset to her community and a supportive figure for veterans. Welcome, Angie.
Thank you.
When reading your bio, I was definitely thinking about Rick and Eric because
Yeah.
he loves to travel, and Eric definitely has a love of family, and I'm sure we'll get into that from both of these gentlemen as well. So, Eric Bobby Boatwright was raised in a small South Carolina town. He joined the Army at 19 as a radio teletype operator, serving in South Korea and at Fort Hood, Texas. After earning a business administration degree in the late 90s, he spent nearly a decade in customer relations. Post 9/11, he reenlisted in the U.S. Army Reserve as a paralegal specialist, later serving in the Combat Aviation Brigade for 3rd Infantry Division, deploying to Iraq and Afghanistan. Following an assignment in Oahu, where he earned multiple awards, Eric was stationed at the United States Military Academy at West Point and later at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. He then worked in the Army General Counsel's office at the Pentagon, followed by a role with the 7th Infantry Division at Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington State. Currently, he is the operations manager for the I-Corps, Office of the Staff Judge Advocate, mentoring junior warrant officers and preparing for his transition out of the military. The Boatwrights plan to downsize and return here to DC as they become empty nesters. Welcome, Bobby.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope I did all three of you justice in your introductions.
Mine sounded like the speech you give at the retirement ceremony.
Right. Yes.
Well, I've sent you a copy of it, so you definitely give it to whoever will be hosting for you. Tell them to get it right, okay? Because you the man. So let's talk about a little bit about self-doubt. And I'm going to define it a little bit for some of those who may be watching who really can't put it into words. So self-doubt really is just a lack of confidence in one's own self or abilities. It involves questioning your decisions, actions, overall worth, often leading to feelings of uncertainty and insecurity. It's an internal conflict that can hinder personal growth and professional development, and it impacts various aspects of life. Some signs and symptoms of self doubt include indecisiveness, right? You have difficulty making decisions, even about simple matters, negative self talk, right? Frequently being critical with yourself, undermining that internal dialogue that you have with yourself, fear of failure, right? So fearful of failing that you don't even try new things, or you procrastinate, or perfectionism. You think that if you try something, you have to be so good at it that it has to be perfect, or you just don't try it at all. Comparison, that's another one. Comparing yourself to other people on their journey. And it also can have physical symptoms like stress related, headaches, insomnia, and believe it or not, even digestive issues can occur due to this self doubt. Before I go on and talk about imposter syndrome, do any of you want to add to that? Especially if you have ever experienced self doubt, what symptoms have you experienced? Eric,
Pain.
pain. I
So
like that.
pain in your body, stress and trauma and self-doubt can manifest its ways through pain in your body to the point that it can stop you from being able to walk, run, do all the things that you've done in the, that you were able to do without any issues. And I'll talk about it a little bit more, but um, I was to a point where I couldn't walk. I had to, well, the Army said that I had to have surgery um,
Mhm.
immediately, and I did not take that option. But
Mm.
I'll talk about it more as we go on. But it can affect everything with your body and pain.
I totally agree, and I love that.
And to add to that, depression. Depression is a big thing too. Part of it.
Yeah,
I found myself not wanting to do things that I would do on a regular just because
right.
I was in that state, and I had to find my way out of that by building myself up. So that's another big part as well.
I
Yeah.
love that. Thank you. Eric, you have anything to add?
Uh, all of the above. Uh, it's it, and for me, and this started in childhood, just kind of like that fear of failure, and
Mhm.
so you don't try anything.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Absolutely afraid to try because you're afraid to fail.
Mm.
And we can also discuss this, not trying is failure. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Hopefully that comes up. And something similarly related that we're talking about today is this concept called imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome, it is a psychological pattern where individuals doubt their accomplishments and have a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud, despite evidence of their competence. Those experiencing imposter syndrome, they often attribute their success to luck or external factors rather than their own abilities. So, I said attributing to luck, fear of being exposed, but people who suffer from imposter syndrome, they often overwork. You feel like you have to, as we often say sometimes, do the most in
Hmm.
order to cover up perceived inadequacies. You also discount praise, right? When people give you praise, you want to be like, oh no, like I don't deserve that. It's fine. You want to downplay it or you want to just dismiss it. Also, perfectionism is another one. People strive for perfection in every single task to avoid criticism or discovery of what they perceive to be their own incompetence. So these two things have a lot in common and they self sabotage you. It makes you engage in behaviors that undermine your success. And we're going to talk about that. But recognizing these signs and symptoms is truly the first steps toward addressing and overcoming these challenges. So let me start by asking my panel, can you share any personal experience or anecdotes related to dealing with self-doubt and or imposter syndrome that you have faced in your life? Eric, I'll allow you to go first.
So something I think about a lot is I picked the probably the worst job in the military for someone who kind of suffers with that because often you're the only person in the office who does what you do, and it's rare that your bosses and the people who need your support are really clear on what you do. So there's like just 10 years of doubt, like how good am I really at this? And what, it's comparison is the thief of joy. Like, am I better than the one they had before? Am I, and, I followed Mike Rodriguez here. So of course I'm not,
Oh, wow.
you know, but yeah, so that like, it's just, there's no kind of, I mean, everybody gets good OERs, but that's because your bosses have, the space in their profile for it, really, or at least that's what I tell myself, right? I don't earn it; they just have it to give.
Mhm.
And um, yeah, so it's a really odd career to be in because I never really know how good I am at it.
Totally understand. How about you, Angie? I know
Yeah.
that you also, like Eric and like Rick and I once upon a time were, are a warrant officer, but your job is different. So how about you?
And so I think for me, it's coming in, switching over from enlisted to warrant and knowing that, like Rick was saying, you're the only person that does your job. So having that in the back of your mind, especially going through school and training and getting to that point where you're like, okay, now I'm going back to the unit. Am I going to be able to perform like they're expecting me to? So it's a lot of self doubt switching over and not really knowing how you're going to do and just being unsure of yourself. And for a very long time, I just didn't know if I was going to be able to get into my role and perform, and if somebody was going to call me out because, hey, you're supposed to be the subject matter expert. When are you going to show that? So, overworking, that was another thing that I tend to do, just overworking to try to see if I can compensate for what I think might not be enough for the position. So it definitely happened while I was going transition into a warrant.
Totally understand. How about you, Rick?
So for me, with imposter syndrome, I have this innate, I used to have this innate ability to always see the good in others. I would always be able to see their strengths, always be able to be like, oh man, this person is so awesome. They're so great. And I would just want to be a part of like this group of people that I thought were the best of the best of the best. And that had always kind of been my pattern since I was young and I was in high school. But I was never able to recognize my own strengths and weaknesses and the unique gifts that I brought to the table. And so, through therapy and just, working on myself and prayer and meditation, I was able to switch that, to fix it, to identify it and fix it.
I can definitely understand. And I would say that some people, not you, because you do have those abilities, although, like you said, it took therapy and some real meditation and self-reflection to see them in yourself. But oftentimes there are people who really are imposters. And so they do surround themselves with people who, as we like to say, make them look good. So
Uh,
I can understand that's sort of like that's a mechanism that people often use to sort of protect their own shortfalls or shortcomings. Um, so let's talk a little bit about affirmations, right? And what so people think that you have to be very deliberate with your affirmations, and I would say that is not necessarily the case. You don't have to be deliberate in the mirror reciting affirmations at yourself every day for you to really affirm yourself. So I want to ask you all, how has affirmations helped you in combating self doubt when you are in that state or you are in a situation where you don't believe that you can accomplish the goals, you don't believe that you're meant to be in the position that you're in or that you can conquer whatever it is, whatever obstacle that you're facing? How do you talk yourself through it, Eric?
I don't, I'm not very good at affirming myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one thing that I keep going back to is, was it a year, two ago? Um, I finally went to my first behavioral health appointment, and I was feeling really anxious. And one of the things the guy mentioned to me when I talked about not feeling worth who the imposter syndrome, really, He just mentioned the 20 years in the military. Like, that's nothing to sneeze at. And when you're in the military, it doesn't seem like that's a big deal. But for somebody on the outside, to recognize the kind of sacrifice and the work, and especially with our generation of deployments and everything else, that's a big deal. And so a lot of times when I think I'm not good enough, I remind myself of kind of the affirmation that the therapist gave, an outside observer. I just keep parroting his affirmation of me back to myself.
Absolutely. And I do agree. I mean, and I've been there, and Rick has been there, and Angela is
Mm.
there. When you are in the military, I feel like you don't recognize the value of what it is that you're achieving, value of being a soldier, value of being an officer, value of being a leader. And I think that the reason is because of the people that we work around and that we work for. And that may be a conversation for a whole nother topic. But I think sometimes it's just so fast paced that you don't have time to reflect on it. But sometimes it's the people that are working against you, who work around you, that make it hard for you to remember that what you're doing is actually pretty freaking phenomenal.
Yeah.
We know less than 1% of the people in the country do it, and we're part of that 1%. But the people that you often work around, they can sometimes attribute to that imposter syndrome that you have, or that self-doubt that you have. So how about you? Let me ask Angie, how do you deal with the you know, use of affirmations in combating self-doubt?
And so for me, I have it in my Alexa. She wakes up in the morning and she provides me a positive affirmation to start off my day. I think that's important to have something like that. I love Eric's example. I thought I'm going to use that for myself next time I have an issue. But I know I definitely look into just finding words of encouragement, giving myself that time to just pause and reflect on an affirmation when I feel like I'm going on the opposite side of my feelings and feeling like I self doubt at a point.
I love that. And Rick, I want you to answer that question, but I'm also going to
Yes.
ask this on top of that as well. Um,
Okay.
what strategies do you use to incorporate positive self-talk into your daily routines? Because I know this is really big for you.
Okay. All right. So with affirmation, I just want to say that first of all, it brought me closer to God. It helped me to understand that He hears my prayers. He knows the desires of my heart. And for Eric, like when I first started it, it was just a repetition. I was just saying it. But what I did is I made time for it to do it every day. And in the beginning, you don't feel it, right? I didn't feel it. That was my experience. But I kept making time. And then one day, like the things that I was saying to myself every morning, I started to see them like I was manifesting them. And so as that happened, I began to get more and more confident about saying them and then understand the importance of them. And so with my affirmations, every morning I get up, I meditate, I pray. I have affirmations that I say to myself. I say them so often I could almost sing them. Like as I'm driving to work or on my bike or something, I'm listening to music, I can like sing to the beat. I take like walks with God, talks with God, and then I say my affirmations. I affirm myself, and even when it's hard, right? When times are hard and like I'm overwhelmed, and you feel that depression keep creeping in, I remind myself the sun is still shining. So like through the rain, like through the
I think we lost the volume for you, Rick.
I thought it was just me.
Me too.
Okay.
it just followed me. When things fell apart, it was affirmations and yoga and meditation that helped me to put me back together, and counseling and therapy. So that's how I used them.
I love that. And I definitely will say, it does feel a little awkward initially,
Right.
right? When you start, you're like, okay, why am I repeating these things? They sound so trivial. It seems so silly. But what I would offer is whenever we have negative self-talk with ourselves, it doesn't feel awkward to us.
Mm-mm.
It feels very natural. When we are doubting ourselves, when we're verbally punishing ourselves, when we're beating ourselves up for something, why does that seem so easy? But yet, when we are affirming ourselves and speaking positivity into our lives personally, it feels so awkward. I think you just have to do it. You don't have to do it in front of other people, or maybe you can do it as a family. Maybe that would help. But I definitely want to offer that to people because I feel like people are like, oh, that's so awkward. It's so strange. But we do it negatively to ourselves and we don't question it.
Yeah, we don't realize it. I don't think. I don't think that we're not conditioned to like realize that's what's happening. And
Mhm.
you got to get. We don't have to, but just give yourself grace because you can say it, you can do it, and
Yes.
if it works out, and if it takes a while to pick on, give yourself grace. You're at where you're supposed to be right now, and just
Mhm.
but just keep doing it, or whenever, even if you forget it a day or two, like come back to it, and you'll see the benefits of it. I believe.
Absolutely.
So
Oh,
going
oh, go ahead, Angie.
So just going back to what you were saying about family, my sisters, like we have a real close bond. So I remember at times when I was down, and my second to youngest had an app, and the app would always send these positive affirmations to her, and she would say them out loud, and she would say, "Now you say it." And at the
Ah.
time, I wasn't in place. And I would say it, but in my mind, I'd be like, this is so dumb, right? But
Mhm.
as I got into reading my affirmations, having my phone deliver those affirmations, repeating them, that changed. So
Yeah.
that was helpful.
I do. And I'll let you lead this next question since you just talked about your sisters. I do want to ask, and all of you, in what ways do you think childhood experiences shape our self confidence as adults? I want to hear everyone's perspective on that because I think that's a very, very interesting question.
So for me, I was shy. I was really, really shy and quiet as a child. And I think that just carried over into my adulthood, just being quiet and timid. And I think I just needed the right people in my life to push me to the point where I can be more self spoken and not as timid. So it's been a journey. It's definitely been a journey, and I, I do give myself credit for a lot of the things that I've been able to accomplish because I would never do this about 20 years ago. So, yeah, I definitely have came from a childhood where I just really never raised my hand to answer questions because I would be embarrassed. And then just getting out of that by having the right mentors and right individuals in my life to push me to the limit.
Understandable. How about you, Eric?
I I can't think of anything in my childhood that I would call traumatic,
Hmm.
but on the other but on the other hand, there that also means there weren't any challenges to overcome. There was no way, no avenue for me to prove that I was up to do something hard. And even though my family was supportive in the sense of kind of a generic, yeah, you can do anything you want when you grow
Hmm.
up, but
Yep.
again, there was no opportunities to kind of realize, oh, you're really good at that, or you're not so good at that, and kind of develop a way forward. And so, yeah, that kind of leads to that fear I talked about earlier of never really knowing what you're good at, how good you are at anything, and so it's just been very late in my life when I've just, hey, let's just try some hard things, and failure is actually kind of fun, honestly.
It is. Yep. Success comes from failure.
Yep.
Absolutely. Rick?
I believe if you didn't have a good relationship with your parents or your caregivers growing up, if they didn't give you the love or the attention or just the nurturing with the basic needs, food, clothing, and shelter, or if you were
Yeah.
abused, or if you weren't abused, you witnessed abuse, it can have a significant impact on um, on your life and how you see yourself, your self confidence, imposter syndrome. So some people are blessed not to have those experiences, but unfortunately, I wasn't. So I was raised in a very traumatic household. I was raised in confusion and domestic violence. And I'm not saying that for sympathy. I'm saying that as sharing a part of my story and my truth. And so those were some things throughout my healing process that I had to address and I had to release. Like I had to let that go and I had to heal from that because that was contributing to the pain and the trauma and the things that I have been carrying around until 41 years old. So that's how being raised in that type of environment. And sometimes it's not even the things that you directly experience, generational strongholds and traumas. So I
Yes.
didn't have a relationship with my father until 2 years ago. I talk to my father on a daily basis, my mother, they're my best friends. And I learned that like the dreams that I've had my entire life that I thought were just my dreams are the same dreams that my father had. So some of the stuff that like I was struggling with, it wasn't my stuff. It was his stuff and maybe his father's stuff. And so
Mhm.
that's how, you know, growing up in your childhood can affect your life going forward. And that was my experience.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. I mean, there are two scenarios. You have one kid who's growing up in a very loving, nurturing, safe um, environment where the communication is open. They're able to express their feelings and emotions and their thoughts without being disciplined every time. And I feel that that does help you to be more confident. It helps you to know yourself a little bit better when you're raised in that type of environment, especially one where you are affirmed by the
Right.
adults,
You're seeing.
maybe your parents, maybe your grandparents,
mm,
maybe even your teachers.
mm,
But there are so many kids being raised in households right now where they are not being affirmed, where they're being literally told that they are mistakes. Don't nobody want your ass. You remind me of your daddy. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like just abused,
yeah.
abused because every time they're looked at, it's like you remind me of that parent of yours that I can't stand. Or you ain't never gonna be shit,
Mm,
and I never normally curse on here, but I'm just keeping it real. Like there are people who really go through these traumas and they're going through life and they have no confidence at all and their self-esteem is so low, and this is from childhood. These are children, and it is going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of therapy, and it's going to take a lot of reflection for them to 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 grow from that, to get over that trauma.
mm,
And so I definitely for real believe that you have to really raise your kids in an environment of just love, or they will have these issues very seriously when they're older. So, Angie, I want to ask, what strategies have you found helpful? Maybe not even for yourself. I know that you both are leaders, um, and have been in charge of other people's children. So, if it's not something that you've experienced yourselves, I would just like to know what strategies have you found effective or healing from past traumas or obstacles or challenges and building resilience from that.
So for me, it's like especially with my nephews and um, individuals at work, is just showing them that there is another way to deal with those issues, that you can come to me and talk to me if you need somebody to talk to, because somebody was there for me when I needed a mentor or I needed somebody to vent to. So sometimes people don't have the outlet, and allowing yourself and letting them know that you're there for them, I think is very important. And then one of the things that growing up, my parents didn't say I love you. It's not
mm,
because they didn't love
mm,
me, but it's because their parents
Right.
never, expressed that. So for
Exactly.
me,
That
it's very,
generational, that break.
hmm
Mhm.
so it's very important that when I talk to my loved ones, that I say I love you. And I let them know it's okay for you to say I love you back to auntie because I love you and I
Yeah.
know you. So um,
Yeah.
it's very important to set that tone for your loved ones and just people around you. Period.
Yeah, no, I like that you mentioned that because I can definitely say that those generational curses or those
Strongholds,
generational
strongholds.
behaviors and strongholds, as Rick says, it is so true. I mean, it's not that they don't love you; it's just that they were never really taught how to be
Right.
emotional, how to display their emotions. They weren't taught that it was okay. So, although they may love you and they may show you in other ways, they don't verbalize it.
Right,
And sometimes that verbalizing it can go further than any other way. Like I don't need you to buy me things.
Hmm.
Just give me a hug. We have some people who it's hard for them to even hug their own children.
right,
It's very awkward for them to hug their own children. Some people it's just very because they were never hugged,
right,
and especially if you want to talk about, a lot of fathers they're not very affectionate with their sons,
Hmm.
right? Or the type of affection that they give their sons is very different than the type of affection that they give their daughters. So those type of things matter as well. And so I know one of you mentioned giving grace, and it's like we have to extend that grace to ourselves, and we also have to extend that grace to our parents and our grandparents as well, because those strongholds, like Rick calls them, I mean, they're strong.
right,
People they're still learning, and we, especially in this generation, we just have access to a lot more things than they had. You know what I mean? We have so much more exposure to things, so things may be a little bit easier for us than them. How about Eric or Rick? What strategies have you all found effective for healing from past challenges or traumas, and building resilience from them?
Eric, Ricky, you want to go first, Eric? I cut you off last time, so
Well,
I'm gonna extend the grace.
um, uh, okay, sorry. Repeat the question.
So if you yourself have dealt with any challenges in the past, whether they are at the extent where you would call them traumas, what strategies did you use to conquer them or defeat them and to build resistance from them? And if you haven't dealt with that yourself, maybe your children have, or a soldier that you once led, what would you tell them?
Um, well, somebody mentioned grace before, but like grace in the context of we're all just kind of muddling along here. I saw a meme just today where somebody said, "Hey, the difference between an adult and a child is the adults are unsupervised."
I like
Right?
that.
And like so like don't put other people up on a pedestal, like in the sense that they don't have problems or they're not suffering or trying to heal from something. We're all in this together, and we all deserve more affirmation and more grace than we're getting,
Yes,
and just try to offer it wherever. Make it's free to make people feel good about themselves.
I love that. Absolutely true. It is free. Rick?
And I mean, just we're saying it is grace, it's forgiveness. Like no matter how they have hurt you in the past, like forgiving them and letting it go. And then like when you're extending grace, like one of my supervisors, pray for them because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what they're struggling with. Sometimes it's hard. We live in our own head and like the world revolves around us, and all we can focus on is like our stuff. But like everybody's just trying to make it, right? Regardless. Like life is hard. We're all just trying to make it home. And so I extend grace. I forgive them. I pray for them, and then I focus on what I can change about myself. So when I see those shortcomings in those individuals and I see how they hurt me, like if I reflect on it long enough or I meditate on it long enough, I'll be like, I've done that same exact thing to someone else. I didn't mean it.
Yeah.
That wasn't my
Right.
intention, but it was the impact. And so, based on this situation, I'm going to give them grace. I'm going to forget. I'm truly going to let it go. And then I'm going to work on ensuring that I don't do that to someone else. And when I focus on what I'm doing and what I can change about myself, that empowers me in a way to kind of fix it, kind of stop it, right? And then when I do, even if I do make a mistake, because maybe my intentions are good, but I do make a mistake and I hurt someone, I would hope that they extend the same grace back to me, right? Like they're able to forgive me and, and we're just able to move on. And so that's how I try to go about it.
Absolutely. I love that. So, Angie, I'm going to start this question with you. All right. If not in your own professional life, maybe you've had this experience with other people. What specific challenges do people who have self doubt or imposter syndrome face in their professional lives? How can that affect you professionally? Or how
It's-
has it?
So sometimes I always tell people, you can't just automatically assume that this person is just the evil person and the way that they move is just because that's who they are. Everybody is going through something. We're all trying to make it out of something, like Rick said, right? So you might be exuding that energy off on me, and it might come off as if like you're just out to get me. And I've had bosses that's just been really negative, and at the end of the day, it's just understanding that and having those conversations. Like I've literally pulled people to the side and just had a conversation, all to find out that they were going through some really deep personal issues in their lives. And it was affecting me at work, and I couldn't get my work done because you were exuding that energy onto me. So just by having that conversation really helps. Sometimes people don't realize how they are coming off, and they don't feel the energy that they're putting out there. And it's
Yes.
nothing wrong with just having that conversation. I think sometimes we shy away from having those because we don't want to add more, but sometimes it resolves those issues, and a lot of times it has for me.
Hmm.
And it's the way that you say things too is very
Right.
important. So
Right.
No, I definitely agree. And I mean, and we know, and especially I know Rick and Eric for sure because we have had the same job. We move like every 2 years. So we've been probably in so many different organizations and offices that we've had to get reused to the new culture. And Angie, you're military as well, so you probably likely have had this exact same experience. And I
exact
will
same.
definitely tell you, the person who leads that organization literally sets the environment for that organization. If that person is very toxic, then the people underneath that person are going to do all those things that we talked about when we talked about the signs and symptoms of self-doubt and imposter syndrome. Those people are going to be procrastinating. Those people are going to be overworking. They're going to be doing all those things because they are going to start lacking confidence, because nothing that they do is ever going to seem good enough for that type of leader, because that leader might not even provide praise. But sometimes we do have to maybe mentor up, right? Or lead up. That's what I call it. Sometimes we just need to talk to those people and let them know what they're doing. Let
Hmm.
them know that if you don't tell people that they're doing a good job, they don't think that they're doing a good job. And they may have already given 100% when they did the good job that they thought that they did, but you didn't tell them that they did it. And now the next time they do it, they're going to get 110. And guess what? There's really no such thing as 110% of effort. It's either all or less than that. So what you have done is just overexerted that person. And so now you're putting them in situations where now they're becoming mentally and physically exhausted because they're really trying to conquer that self-doubt and self-confidence and that imposter syndrome that you have bestowed upon them. I don't know how many organizations I've gone into where people come in and they're very confident about their abilities and their skills. They really think that they are really good at what they're doing. And guess what? They are. But when they're not praised, or when they're not looked at as a human but a number or just a name, and they're constantly just, it's just outputs, 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 and there's nothing being input into that person, grace, gratitude, all of that, then that self-confidence that they had, it starts to deteriorate. So I absolutely believe that sometimes you just have to check people. You just have to tell them exactly what they're doing, because some people don't know. And what we don't understand sometimes is that our bosses are going through things
Right.
as well.
Right. Yeah, big
They
time.
go through things as well. So, Eric and Rick, I want to allow you all to answer that question that I asked. What challenges have you yourself faced with self confidence or self doubt or imposter syndrome in the workplace? Or if you haven't had any issues because you are just that
You
good and
lucky.
awesome,
You blessed. Woo! God is good.
then, what have you noticed or what have you mentored someone through? Um,
Okay,
Rick, you can go ahead.
I'll go first. My issues in the workplace that I struggled through that eventually I was able to overcome is I let them get in my head. I let the people get in my head and all the things, the nasty things that they said about me. You're never gonna amount to nothing. You're no good. You're whatever. Even though I know that I was given the best I had and more. Even though
Yeah.
I know that I was working long hours, I was going home and couldn't sleep because I was worried about insurance that contract was approved, that we got the budget, that I'm going into work on the weekends, that even with no help, when I need help, at the end of the day, like Eric said earlier, we're in these positions where we're one man deep and the whole world rests on your shoulders. And forget your feelings, forget how your day is. They just want you to get it done. So I let somebody get in my head and they convinced me that I was not a good legal administrator when that was not the truth. And so I had to take that power back. I had to be like, regardless of what this person says about me, and if it's a bunch of them, I know my worth. I know at the end of the day, I'm the one, like I said, I got the contract, I got the money. All the things that you're complaining about, yeah, you can go and complain to higher ups, but they're just coming to me and telling me to get it done. But I've already been working on it. I knew that this was coming and I've already been working on it. And guess what? I got it done. And no, you don't have to come back and say thank you to me, but I got it done. And I'm a damn good legal administrator, and your opinion about me no longer matters to me. I'm going to affirm myself. And that's even if my bosses affirm me or not. And so you take the power back, you say those affirmations to yourself, you spend time with yourself, you take care of yourself, even when the ones that are in the office that are in positions where you think they're supposed to take care of you. I used to think that, but if they're dealing with life, right? Divorce, like healthy, like if they're dealing with their stuff, they don't have the capacity. And I don't think that we realize that sometimes that, yeah, they're supposed to do those things. And so I'm not putting the onus on you anymore. I'm going to take time for myself. I'm going to go to behavioral health. I'm going to take that mental health appointment. I'm going to set, boundaries. If you give me this list of things to do, what's your top three priorities? This is the top three. I'm going to have to draw a line. I can't get the rest of this done without some help. I have no help. Like I literally have no help. And so those are some of the issues that I was able, that I faced and that I was able to overcome. Like I walked away with my head up high knowing that at the end of the day, regardless of what people had to say, I got the job done.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad because you just mentioned a few things. Sometimes people attack you in the workplace, and it's not even coming from a professional space. Sometimes
Mm.
people just don't like something about you, and it's very personal, whatever it is. And there's really nothing that you can do about that. But what you can do, and you did, is just maintain your professionalism, do your job, you know, make sure that everything that is required of you is done. Because at the end of the day, you still win when you do that. Affirm yourself.
Right,
Never let anyone knock you off your own, you know, pedestal.
right,
And we all should place ourselves on a pedestal. And if you are able to finally get to that level of self confidence and just have that thing about yourself where you just know who you are and you know what you bring to the table and
right,
that you offer to the world and life, nothing that anyone says or
right,
does to you or about you will be able to knock you
right,
off of that. And we all should strive for that. And it's not easy.
right.
It takes time. It takes these affirmations. It may take therapy. It takes a great council of people surrounding you to constantly remind you, like Angela and her sisters
Mm-hmm.
do for one another. Like you did when you said you surrounded yourself with a group of people who you basically wanted to emulate.
Right.
It's putting yourself in a positive space regardless of the negativity that is around you. How about you, Eric?
Um, So what comes to mind is my first job as a warrant officer, and I probably spent 18 months thinking I'd made a mistake, and and you know there
18,
was just there
At
was
one point or another.
yeah.
10 years.
So you know there was lots of pressure, lots of requests, and like for a long time I was working extra hard, thinking I needed to be the expert on all dozens of different things, and but like finally, um, and I think it was even my deputy at the time, when she was heading out, she's like, your job is to make your raider happy, and like, and she didn't say it in the perfect way, but I think what she was trying to get across, and what I took with me is, I don't work for all of you people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, yeah, my job is to provide support and whatever, but your name does not appear on my evaluations ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I work for two people, and they set the tone. They tell me what's important to them, and those are the things I take care of. And if there's extra energy or time left, then I do all those kind of minor things that I believe is important and can affect the organization. But you can't go through life with every single person in your life being your boss.
I love that.
That's a good
I
one.
really, really love that. Absolutely. And I will definitely say, I definitely feel like you can relate that to the military. Just say, a junior officer or a junior soldier, maybe even a junior non-commissioned officer, that they have a lot of pressure. Like once we get to Chief Warrant Officer 3, we already realize I serve one, maybe two bosses. So thank you. Get in line. I will get to you when I can, right? I have listed my priorities in order, and they start with what my boss's priorities are. So I will get to you because you too are important, just not as important as these things. But it's so true. And I feel like a lot of people, and people probably experience that in the civilian workplace. And matter of fact, I would say that they kind of do. Like right now, I'm in the civilian workplace. I work as a contractor. For me, I don't try to impress every person I work with. I make sure that I'm good with my advisor, which is sort of like a quasi supervisor. I make sure that I'm good with my program manager as a project lead because I'm a project lead. I make sure that I am satisfying the client and that my CEO is happy because if the clients are happy, guess what? The CEO is happy. There's four people. Matter of fact, five, because one of them is definitely myself, right?
Right.
I want to be pleased with myself
Yeah.
because if I'm pleased with myself, honestly, if those people are expecting a little bit too much out of me, then there's really nothing that I can do about it, right? Because I'm already going to set my standards pretty high. But I love that you said that, and I definitely want that to be one of the things that people take away. You can't please multiple masters, and that's in so many areas of life. You just can't please multiple masters. Um, so I want to ask this question of you all: how important is seeking support and or mentorship in dealing with self-doubt and imposter syndrome, seeking other people outside of yourself? How about you, Angie?
So I seek number one, higher power God. Like
Wow.
that's I have to talk to him every day, every morning when I wake up. I talk to him to just pour into me what I need for that day. And then mentorship as far as therapy. I know Rick said a couple times that he goes through therapy. I also go to therapy as well. Um, I need to be able to talk to somebody about a lot of stuff that I go through. And sometimes family, of course, is there, but you just need that outlet, another point of view. So I definitely do use people around me to definitely talk to and for support. So
How about you, Eric?
I've got two things to say. One, it's extremely important, and two, I barely do it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Deep.
So I get you would
I
say I'm still on my journey for that.
mm-hmm. And that's good. No, I definitely am glad that you were vulnerable enough to admit that, because guess what? You are not going to be the only person
Right.
who is going to admit that, because you're not the only person who's not doing that. I mean, some people have a hard time seeking support. Some people think that they can conquer it all or they can do it all. I can take care of it myself. I don't want to burden other people with my problems. But you know, if you can just find one person, Eric, I would challenge you to do this. Just one person outside of your household, right? Because I know you have a spouse. Um, and we all know we rely on our spouses for so much, but sometimes you feel like you're burdening them because they also have their own burdens that they deal
Right.
with. You know what I mean? And maybe outside your boss, because sometimes you don't want to tell your boss specific things about your business, right? So maybe a close friend, maybe that, or like Angie, Rick, and myself for sure, a therapist. Therapy is it's fun to me, and I know my therapist think I'm really crazy. I mean, I make the lady laugh more than I cry. You know what I mean? I love
Yeah.
that. It's just the outlet. It's just a person who doesn't really know much about me except for what I share. So I love that, because sometimes when you share with your friend or you share with a family member or your spouse or someone you work with, they already have so many preconceived thoughts and notions about you. They think they know you because they've been in your life for X number of years, or they see, you know, you day to day. And it's not really true, because sometimes you don't even show your whole
Yeah, true
self
sense.
at work.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
sometimes people, they've been in marriages for 10 years and they're not even their true selves. They don't even know who their true selves are anymore, because maybe they just been married for so long and the responsibilities have hit them like an 18-wheeler that they just been going and doing. So it's really nice to talk to a therapist, because you know they don't know you, you know, but they can help you through what you're going through, because they listen, they try to learn, and then they don't try to really solve the problems
Right.
for you. They try to help you solve them yourself.
Right.
And I think that's the difference too. And I'll turn it over to you, Rick.
You see me like getting like anxious.
No, because I know you know. Yeah, I know you definitely
I'm
have
sorry
something
that
for this.
tick because I'm
Mhm.
Ready?
somewhere in the middle, right? So we definitely need a support system. You definitely, should, we should try to reach out to others, mentors, leaders in your communities. For me, it's my chaplain. But like Angela said, first is God, right? First is God.
Amen.
God is in
For
within
me
me,
too.
and I think sometimes we put God in a box, like my relationship with God, because I'm spiritual, not religion, right? We're not religious. So what God looks
Yeah.
like to me and what he does for me may be different from your experience. But if you have a belief system in a higher power, it helps you
Whatever it is.
so much, like whatever that is for you. And
Mhm.
and then everything, the way I end my class, everything that you need is inside of you. And so that's one of the benefits from meditation. Like when you're able to sit still and sit with that hot loneliness, sit with that pain. And sometimes, yeah, don't call and tell your whole social circle what's going on. Sit with it. Just quiet, let the
Mhm.
tears roll down your face. Write it in your journal. Those those answers to the questions that you have, like they're within you. Like what truly makes you happy? What's important to you? Is this job worth it? Is what I've been doing for the last 10 years that I feel like is a big mistake? You had 18 months. I'm joking. Like, is it worth it? Like, is it time to finally choose me?
Mhm.
Is it time to put my happiness before this? And so I truly do believe like once you're connected to self, and connected to a higher being, everything that you need to solve life's problem, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally. Again, like I couldn't walk, and I was going to physical therapy. I was going to Cairo. I was going to acupuncture. I had a shaman. I was my whole social circle, like everybody, like I'm calling everybody, and then everybody's calling everybody else, and so people that never even met me, never even had a conversation with me, feel like they know a version of Rick. You don't know me. You don't know Rick. And so what
Right.
I'm saying is if you're talking to too many people, then they're just repeating stuff. And then they have, how do I say it? Like they're watching what you're doing. They're watching your struggle, but sometimes there's no true intent to help you. You know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
sometimes
Absolutely.
they're not even in a position to help you. And so
Yes.
once you go inward, You write those questions down. You can journal. You can figure it out for yourself, and you'll know what you need and who you need to talk to. Whether it's a therapist who, like you said, all they're doing is asking you questions, and you're answered, and you're talking out loud, and you're like, oh shit, okay. They're just kind of guiding you along the way. They're not making decisions for you, or okay, this is spiritual. I need to talk to my pastor. This is something, or I just need to talk to God. I'll walk and talk with God. But I really do believe that everything that we need is inside of us, and then from there, you assess accordingly. What else? What other resources that you can add to what's important to you?
Yes. And the struggle is in the search.
Yeah.
Trying to really dig deep within
But
yourself.
that's life.
Really
That's
dig
life.
deep to find it.
Yeah, that's
And
a
the thing
journey.
is, some people don't want to dig that deep. You know why? Because the truth is going
Here.
to hurt.
The
When you
pain,
find the
the
truth,
trauma.
you're going to have to do something with
Yes,
the truth.
yes.
And that is
Oh,
the hard part for a
And you
lot
know
of
what
people.
that
like
is? You let it go.
Yep.
That pain, that trauma, that
killing
stuff.
me, getting
Yep, Angel. Yeah, you let it
Yep.
go because you're carrying it
mhm.
around with you, and that's the reason that like things are so difficult and so hard for you because you're carrying around all this unresolved pain, all this unresolved trauma. From childhood, from high school, from past relationships, from work.
Yes,
Like it's with you. It's in your body. The body keeps the count.
it is.
And so once you're able to
Mhm.
realize that, you let it go and you physically feel lighter. At the point where I was the heaviest in my life, like I had gained like 40 pounds over COVID. But once I started my healing process, before I lost the weight, before I started saying the
Mhm.
affirmations of like, I'm a beautiful man, my light shines bright, like when I let that stuff go that I didn't realize I was carrying around, I felt light before I was
It's
even
like
like
a detox.
big time.
Yeah.
It is. It's like a
Yeah.
detox. So, as we wrap up this enlightening discussion on conquering self doubt and imposter syndrome, I want to take a moment to sincerely thank our incredible panel for sharing your personal experiences, insights, and valuable advice. I know that it is not easy sometimes to get here and talk about some of these things. But before we go, I would like to give each of you the opportunity to impart any final words or thoughts that you'd like to leave our listeners with. So, I'm going to start with you, Eric.
Thank you for starting with me. Um, it, final thoughts.
What would you tell? What would you tell a younger Eric?
Just it's stupid, but like do it. I used to tell my kids. Remember that stupid Jim Carrey movie, Yes Man, where he gets like
Oh
hypnotized
yes,
to say yes to everything, right?
yes.
And like just be a yes man. There's so little that's actually going to wind up being a net negative to you when you do it. Don't procrastinate because that's not your best work.
Mm-hmm.
And just like put the pedal to the metal.
I love it. I always say, ain't nothing to it but to do it.
Yep.
Do
Like,
it.
just do it.
Just
You'd
do
be surprised at the outcome. You'd be surprised at your own strengths. You'd be surprised when you find talents that you didn't even know you had just by doing
it.
things. And if you fail, who cares? Because guess what? There's a lesson in failure. Scientists do it all the time. They literally have an entire career on failing. It's called a hypothesis. You hypothesize something, and then if it doesn't work, guess what? They do another hypothesis.
Documented and do
And then
another.
eventually they found cures for things like cancer, and HIV. I mean, it happens. It's all about just continuing to do it, having the confidence to just do it. Just like Eric said, none to it but to do it. How about you, Angie?
Design your own life. Um, Listen, love yourself,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
accept and complete yourself. Like in whatever way that looks. For me, I've created my toolbox. I, I haven't changed myself. One of the things that I received while I was at school, one of my TAC officers, his his main mission for us was to add to our toolbox. I don't want you all to change. You
Mm-hmm.
all were selected to be warrant officers because of who you are and what
Right.
you bring to the table. Don't change it because you feel like you have to conform to what everybody else looks like and what other leaders might tell you you have to look like. Be yourself. Just take along the road, grab some tools and add it to that box and continue to grow. Continue to love yourself.
I love that. That is awesome. Don't conform. Just keep being you because you are put in the positions you are put in the positions for because you are yourself. I love that. And I think that people don't realize that often enough. So definitely take that away as well. Continue being you. You have gone this far being yourself and don't change that. Being yourself is good enough.
Yeah.
Just constantly improve by putting those tools in your box, as Angie said. Thank you, Angie. That's awesome. I like that. Rick?
Wow. This went by really quick, faster than what I expected. But I just want to say to you, Jessica, thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this. I still rock my unbreakable bracelet. It's the only one that I don't take off everywhere I go. So it's been all over the world with me. So thank you for this opportunity. It's good to see you, Ricky Bobby. It's been a minute. Angela, I just met you tonight online, and I feel like we're so in sync. Like Jessica was right when she started talking. We have similar interests, and like every time you would
Mm-hmm.
talk, I'd be like, I wrote that down. Like that's kind of what I was going to say.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want to do is just encourage everybody to like keep on keeping on. Like keep going, no matter how hard it may get. Keep going. Your journey is unique. It's your own, and you're exactly like where you're supposed to be. Right. So don't left, don't look right. You're right where you're supposed to be. Give yourself grace. And when you're ready to take it to the next step, you will. And once you're able to take it to the next step, once you're able to heal, once you're able to evolve, once you're able to grow, look back and help someone else. Like, look back and help get the next person to where you're at. And so that's what I would like to leave everybody with. And then just say thank you again, Jessica, for this opportunity. And to Angela, nice to meet you. And Eric, yeah, you're going to be at the Lomac by yourself. That sucks.
Well, it's going to be me and Brent.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. You know, he's the life of the party, so you guys are going to be good.
Exactly. Well, you're absolutely welcome. And I do like what you said. Reach back and pull someone else to where you are.
Right.
And if you keep going, and hopefully there's someone who's a little bit ahead of you on their journey who can reach back and pull you. And then just imagine how far you can go along your journey. I love that. I definitely want to thank you all for your powerful, and inspiring closing thoughts. Your contributions today have been invaluable, as I said before. To our listeners, we hope this episode has provided you with the tools and encouragement to tackle self doubt and imposter syndrome head on. Remember, overcoming these challenges is a journey, and you are not alone. We are all on that journey. We're just at different stages. We're on our own roads, right,
Right.
y'all?
Yes.
The road less taken. The
Exactly.
road less taken.
I thank everyone again. Thank my panelists again. Thanks everyone who listens in. And until next time, just keep striving for a more confident, empowered you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.